Most people are familiar with the story of Adam and Eve, the first humans created by God in the Garden of Eden. Everything was perfect until a serpent persuaded Eve to eat the forbidden fruit. Eve then shared it with Adam, leading to their expulsion from paradise. But there's more to the tale than meets the eye. Here's the true story of Adam and Eve. When reading the Bible in English, it's crucial to remember that you're engaging with a translation, which can sometimes obscure original meanings. For example, the common belief that Eve was created from one of Adam's ribs may be a misunderstanding. The Hebrew word tselah, often translated as rib, actually appears 40 times in the Bible and usually refers to the side of something, not specifically a rib. This opens up various interpretations. One such interpretation comes from Dr. Zioni Zevit, a biblical scholar who suggests that Eve might have been created from Adam's baculum, a penis bone found in many mammals but absent in humans. Zevit theorizes that if God took a bone from Adam to create Eve, this could explain why men today lack a baculum. While men have an even number of ribs, the missing baculum might be the bone referenced in Genesis. In 2018, misleading headlines in tabloids suggested that scientists had proven the existence of Adam and Eve by tracing human genetics to a single ancient couple. This interpretation was inaccurate. The study in human evolution examined only mitochondrial and Y chromosome DNA, not the full range of genetic material, which means other genetic contributions were overlooked. Mitochondrial Eve and Y chromosomal Adam, despite their names, were not the first humans or a couple, but rather the most recent common ancestors of these specific genetic lines. The study's focus on these DNA types does not imply that all human genetics trace back to one pair from thousands of years ago. Contrary to her nickname, Mitochondrial Eve was actually supposed to portray the most recent common mitochondrial ancestor of all living humans, not the first human woman ever. The media widely misrepresented a 2018 study, leading researchers to clarify that they were not claiming the existence of a literal Adam and Eve, nor suggesting they were a couple. The study, published in Human Evolution, pinpointed mitochondrial Eve's existence to between 100,000 and 230,000 years ago and Y chromosomal Adam to roughly 75,000 years earlier. However, these individuals were not the first humans or the only ancestors of our species. They simply represent the most recent common ancestors of specific DNA lines. This misconception is puzzling, especially since a similar finding was reported in a 2013 science study. This situation underscores the importance of carefully interpreting scientific research and understanding its nuances. If you read Genesis closely, you'll notice that God creates the universe twice, with the two accounts sometimes contradicting each other. For those who don't take the creation story literally, this isn't a big issue, but it presents a significant challenge for biblical scholars who believe Genesis was solely written by Moses. Over time, some have attempted to reconcile these differences, even suggesting that Adam was originally a hermaphrodite. The first creation account, after all, describes God forming Adam and Eve simultaneously, using language that hints at this interpretation. Male and female, he created them. Some early Christian theologians believed that Adam and Eve were created with both sexes, a theory that lingered for centuries despite discomfort among church leaders. This dual creation narrative also inspired the myth of Lilith, who, according to Jewish tradition, was Adam's first wife. Lilith eventually became a demon, a common fate in such stories. She is thought to be the woman referenced in the first creation account, while Eve was created later from Adam's rib. The belief that the Genesis creation story is taken literally by all Christians is increasingly outdated. While some still adhere to this interpretation, their numbers are declining in the US. According to a 2017 Gallup poll, only 38% of adult American Christians believe that God created Adam and Eve as fully formed humans around 10,000 years ago. The same percentage supports the idea of evolution guided by God, while 19% accept evolution without divine intervention. Protestants are generally more inclined to accept some form of evolution compared to Catholics. Even among evangelicals, a strict literal interpretation is becoming less common, as many Christian scholars explore ways to harmonize faith with scientific understanding. This shift aligns with what early Genesis writers might have intended, as Christian scholars have long regarded the text as more allegorical and poetic rather than historical. The literal interpretation began to gain traction only after St. Augustine's theological reflections on creation in the 4th century AD, marking a significant shift from earlier, more symbolic understandings of the text. Ask anyone what fruit Adam and Eve ate to anger God, and they'll likely say it was an apple. However, the Bible never specifies the type of fruit they consumed. In English translations, it's simply referred to as the fruit from the tree. The original Hebrew word, peri, is just as ambiguous. NPR notes that various Jewish scholars have interpreted peri differently, identifying it as a fig, grape, pomegranate, apricot, or even wheat. Some even considered it an intoxicating drink like wine. So, why do most people think it was an apple? It all comes down to a pun. In the 4th century AD, Pope Damasus commissioned a Latin translation of the Bible, and the scholar Jerome took on the task. When Jerome translated the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, he made a linguistic play on words. In Latin, malus means both evil and apple. Thus, the fruit that led to humanity's fall became synonymous with the apple. John Milton solidified this association by twice referring to the forbidden fruit as an apple in Paradise Lost. The question of whether Adam and Eve had belly buttons may seem trivial, but it's been a theological conundrum for centuries. If they had belly buttons, it would imply a gestation that never occurred, raising questions about why God would create such a feature. Conversely, if they lacked belly buttons, how could they be considered perfect human representations? The book, Did Adam and Eve Have Navels?, explores just how significant this debate has been. It even records an incident in 1944 when a congressional committee objected to a pamphlet given to soldiers that depicted Adam and Eve with belly buttons. Artists have also struggled with this dilemma. Some opted for strategically placed leaves, while others portrayed Adam and Eve with smooth, navel-less abdomens. In a strange intersection with the evolution debate, an 1857 book argued that Adam and Eve having belly buttons proved the Earth was only a few thousand years old. It suggested that just as belly buttons might serve no purpose, so too could the Earth's age be an illusion, a past history of the Earth that never existed except in the divine mind. Throughout history, many have believed that the Garden of Eden was a real place, and some even embarked on quests to find it. However, the description in Genesis provides little guidance, stating only that one river splits into 4, leaving explorers with scant clues. Even a skilled adventurer like Indiana Jones would struggle with such a vague map. Christopher Columbus was among those obsessed with finding Aden, believing he was close when he arrived in Hispaniola and later in Venezuela. Explorer David Livingstone claimed it was at the source of the Nile, although he was delirious with malaria at the time. In 1881, Methodist minister William Warren published a book asserting that Eden was located at the North Pole. In the 20th century, various proofs emerged, placing Eden in Ohio, Florida, Mongolia, and even one of the Seychelles Islands. Theories have also pointed to Azerbaijan, Armenia, Bahrain, South Carolina, Somalia, and a submerged site in the Persian Gulf. The most widely accepted location over the years has been Iraq, but even that is disputed. If you visit Iraq in search of paradise, you'll find 2 competing sites, each claiming to be the true Garden of Eden. In the 1800s, as scholars began to unlock the mysteries of ancient Egyptian civilization, they encountered a significant challenge to religious beliefs. The discovery of ancient texts and monuments, many older than the supposed timeline of Adam and Eve, sparked a crisis. How could these ancient civilizations exist if the Bible's creation story was literal and humanity began just a few thousand years ago? Enter the pre-Adamite theory. This 17th century idea proposed that people existed before Adam. It provided a convenient explanation for gaps in Genesis, such as where Cain found a wife and how cities emerged seemingly out of nowhere. Some Christians found this theory appealing as it allowed them to believe that certain people were not descended from Adam and Eve, thus implying a hierarchy among human beings. Unsurprisingly, this notion was used to justify slavery, suggesting that some lives were inherently less valuable than others. Human childbirth is notoriously painful due to our big skulls and narrow hips. Even before epidurals, there were methods to ease the pain, but for centuries, men insisted that women had to endure suffering because of Eve's sin of eating the forbidden fruit. In Genesis 3:16, God punishes Eve by saying, "I will make your pains in childbearing very severe. With painful labor, you will give birth to children." This passage was often cited to justify the belief that women's suffering in childbirth was divinely ordained. Christianity today points out a significant translation issue in Genesis. The original Hebrew word for labor or toil is used consistently throughout the Bible, but translators uniquely applied the concept of pain when referring to childbirth. While women enduring labor may not dwell on these theological nuances, religious men historically have. Martin Luther once argued that women should feel honored to gloriously suffer in childbirth, and a New England pastor even suggested that easing their pain would deprive God of the pleasure of their deep, earnest cries for help. This belief sparked fierce opposition to the introduction of pain relief during labor in the 1800s, as it was seen as defying God's will.